My name is Les Coney, and I'm the chairman of the board of the Goodman Theatre. Thank you so much for being so patient. Listen, I'm sorry I kicked a few people out of line getting food on the way in. I want you to know the food will be there after the event is over. So, listen, please feel free to sit back, enjoy yourself. On behalf of the Goodman Theatre, I'd like to welcome all of you for coming out on a Monday night. I know it's never easy in Chicago because there's so many places you could be. But I'd like to start by at least acknowledging my partners here at the Goodman and ask that we had such a great turnout with trustees this evening. I can't name them all. I ask for all the trustees who are here tonight, from my Board of Trustees, our Women's Board, and our HistoryMakers Council to please stand for a moment and be recognized. Our HistoryMakers Council is one of the groups here at the Goodman is sort of geared towards the younger executives, which I'm hopefully a part of, here at the Goodman, and that's under the leadership of Cheryl McPhillamy, who's the president. Thank you, Cheryl, for your leadership there. And then our Women's Board is Susan Underwood. I think I saw Susan earlier, and thank you, Susan, for all your support. And then third, again, I'm the chairman of the board of the Board of Trustees. So. Tonight is a wonderful evening for us because we get a chance to celebrate Chuck Smith. Let's give Chuck a nice round of applause. Some people come up and they say, how did we come to this point where we're celebrating Chuck? And I have to tell you a quick story because I know time is of essence. We want to get Robin back to the studio so she can deliver the great news that I'm sure is happening across the country. But about 2 years ago, the Goodman Theatre, we have annually our diversity night. And about, 2 years ago, Chuck Smith was supposed to be at diversity night, but he couldn't attend because he was on a panel of the HistoryMakers for some event that they were doing. So I called Julieanna Richardson, the founder, and said, Julieanna, how did you take my main guy away from diversity night? We need Chuck here. And he said, hell, Chuck, excuse me, I didn't say that. But but it says, Chuck is so important to, this community. He's done so much in theater. We needed him here for what we were doing that particular evening. I said, well, if he's that important, let's make him a history maker. Where are we going? And she said, you're right, we should. So this has been in the making for 2 years. And at first, Julieanna Richardson and I, we talked about, having Chuck come in and do an interview and do it at her studios. But then we thought, boy, wouldn't it be nice to share with the Goodman family here and open it up to the public so that we all can see Chuck Smith and share in an interview. So was that a good idea or not? These events do not happen without support from corporations and individuals. And it'd be hard for me to acknowledge everyone, but I'd like to start with our lead sponsor, Naveen. Tim Schwartzfrager, who's the CEO of Naveen, is traveling today. He could not be here with us, but he is our lead sponsor. When I called Tim, he immediately said, yes, count me in. I love to be supportive, and I want to thank Tim Schwartzfrager and the Naveen Company. And I think tonight they have something that's near and dear to Tim's heart is his students from Scholarship Chicago was here, and I'd like to acknowledge the student if they're around somewhere. Thank you again for coming. Hopefully you'll learn something this evening. I'd like to also thank Level 1, Tom McElroy. I think I saw Tom's either. Tom, please stand. And Tom is actually a new sponsor of the Goodman Theatre. So Tom, thank you again for your generous support. Marshall Fields is also a supporter tonight. Our Board of Trustee, Shelley Abach, is traveling in Europe tonight, but here representing Marshall Fields, a person that many of you know, Ralph Hughes. Ralph, please stand. My good friend Gene Morris is also here tonight. Eugene Morris in Communications. And Gene, where are you this evening? I don't see him, but I know he's here, so hopefully you guys, and congratulations to Gene. He just was married a month or two ago, so congratulations. And By the way, if you need any advice, just come see me. I can share a few. One of our Board of Trustees, Larry Gray. Larry Gray, please stand. From Larry Gray and Associates. James Hill from Hill Taylor, one of the oldest African-American-owned accounting firms in Chicago. Over 30 years serving the city. Another good friend of mine, Pamela Rose from Pamela Rose and Associates. I saw Pamela in her right hand here earlier. Wherever Pamela is, Pamela, please stand. Mark Brooks, I haven't seen, but I know Mark is also one of our supporters tonight. He might have eased in, so thank you, Mark, for your support. And finally, I'd like to thank Aon. Aon is one of our supporters, and I think someone is here from Aon. I'm not sure who that might be.
So tonight we're honoring a friend and supporter of the HistoryMakers, Chuck Smith. We are just pleased to be here. This is a very busy time of year for us. And we're pleased that Robin Robinson of Fox News Corp is here as our MC this evening. We just were with the heads of Fox News Corp in Washington, D.C., where they premiered the DVD series that Russell Simmons and Stan Lathan have done, a documentary series we premiered just last Wednesday. It was July of 2005 that Chuck was interviewed for the HistoryMakers Archive and became one of our art makers. Our archive, for those of you who don't know about us, currently stands at 1,200 interviews, about 3,600 hours of video testimony. We've grown it from a small idea to the largest in the country. Our goal is to have 5,000 interviews completed by 2010. And we appreciate everyone in the audience who has supported us, and we hope that there will be others of you here tonight who will jump on the bandwagon. And we're located right at 1900 South Michigan Avenue, so please stop by. We'd love to, we give tours, and we'd like to have you come by and look at us. Archives, I know, sound old and dusty, but we believe that we're a living, breathing organism where the stories never die and history always remains alive. We actually have grown our programs. We have something called the HistoryMakers Education Institute and the HistoryMakers Speakers Bureau. Actually, our Education Institute is on its way to Atlanta this year in a couple days, where we'll be at Morehouse with Dr. Walter Massey presiding. And we'll have teachers and students on panels. Our HistoryMakers are coming out. We do oral history training. And we actually took our Education Institute earlier this year to LA at the California African American Museum. And it was a glorious day, with people like Magic Johnson and Lou Gossett and Della Reese, everyone who came out to support our initiative. And we ended the day with a wonderful program in tribute to the late Brock Peters. Next week, I just want to mention to you at Harris Bank, we're going to be hosting our Illinois Humanities Council series. It's the fourth in a series we've done right on. It's called The Art of the Written Word, and it's featuring Usini Eugene Perkins, Sam Greeley, Hakim Madhubuti, and Angela Jackson. I'll get over our announcements, but last year we did all women for our Evening Lit series, which is what we're mainly known for in Chicago here. Last year we did an evening with Diane Carroll, an evening with Nikki Giovanni, an evening with Denise Graves. This year it's going to be all men. So we're not doing entertainers for those in Chicago who were tired of us doing entertainers. We're doing an evening with Colin Powell, April 29th in Washington, D.C., an evening with Andrew Young, with Charlene Hunter-Galt doing that interview in Atlanta on Saturday, June 17th, and an evening with Earl Graves here in Chicago on Saturday, October 21st. I am particularly blessed with a hardworking staff, and a wonderful group of volunteers, some of them who are volunteering and others who are getting to sit down and relax. And we have wonderful sponsors that keep coming back and keep us alive. I want to acknowledge the staff here at the Goodman who have been absolutely wonderful to work with. Suzanne Griffin, Deb Clapp, Bianca Delgado, Les Niskern, and his wonderful talented crew. The tech crew has been fabulous. I'd like to also thank Jesse Engel of my staff, who's worked tirelessly as my right-hand person on this event, and Fred Adams and the rest of the crew who's back at the office working hard to get us to Atlanta this week. With our archives, the stories really have a chance, as I said, to keep living on. And one, I just got back from DC. I don't do many interviews. In fact, last year only did 2. But, you know, when you're sitting one-on-one with a person, you often are struck with the richness of their stories. And we really have to take seriously the task of documenting this history, where, you know, even our modern civil rights movement is dead or dying and moving on. Tomorrow in Atlanta, the queen, we could say, of the civil rights movement, Coretta Scott King, will be put to rest, and we lost Rosa Parks this year. So we don't have a lot of time left to do the work that we're doing. And for those who have challenged us, saying, you know, well, what's really the need in this? I often say, you know, in the Black community, for what god-awful reason we have imposed upon ourselves, having to reinvent ourselves every single generation, as if, you know, starting over was a good thing. And I've often questioned myself, why is it the case with the Black community about that? Why is it? And I really believe the whole issue goes back to slavery in this country. White people don't want to feel guilty about slavery, and Black people don't want to be ashamed. But the thing that has happened is that both those communities have acted really in unintended complicity to cover up this wonderfully rich history that so few people know anything about. And it goes beyond sports and entertainment. This past year, we lost several of our history makers. Ossie Davis, Earl Neal, Tyrone Davis, James Foreman, Milton Davis, Dr. Samuel Massey, Bertrand Miles, Oscar Brown Jr., Dr. Maurice Rabb, and several others, including John Johnson, who we were lucky enough to get. But we also lost Johnny Cochran and Ray Charles and Bobby Short and Maynard Jackson and Rosa Parks and Coretta Scott King and the late, great August Wilson, whose plays grace the stage here, all of whom, unfortunately, we were not able to interview. I thought tonight I would take the opportunity to show you who we are. 6 years ago, this was us. This is us today. We have done interviews in over 80 U.S. cities, and thanks recently, and I'm so proud of this, but there's a woman named Ann Brown. People know Etta Moulton Barnett because she was a legend here. She was the second person to appear on Broadway as Bess in Porgy and Bess. But the first person to appear is a woman named Ann Brown, and so the Norwegian consulate has just agreed to fly our crew over so we can record her story. She is the king of Oslo, Norway, so we're really pleased about that. Here's our website for you if you haven't seen it. Our website is a success story. We're getting now 4 million hits per month. Google has rated us one of the top African-American sites on the internet. This year we had the distinction of AOL calling on us. AOL has now Black Voices that used to be with the Tribune, is now with AOL. And so we have struck a year-long deal with them where they actually will be hosting some of the streaming on our site. But this is not, the website is just part of what we are. For the last year and a half, I've had a whole crew working tirelessly to process our archives, because after we do an interview, we create a transcript of it, and the goal is to create a digital archive that will be searchable by image and text. So we've actually processed 400 interviews in our collection, which is over 1,200 hours of video. And thanks to Carnegie Mellon and their donation of a state-of-the-art video indexing system and funding from IMLS, we have been able to unlock our archives like never done before. I want you to see for yourself. With a couple of keystrokes, there you have it. If we type in grandmother, we only have 28 interviews in this demo, you'll be able to see what I'm saying. Can we just show it? Actually, so this is Tavis Smiley. Actually, I've shown this demo. It's sort of cute because the two first people on this demo are Stanley Crouch and Tavis Smiley, and they tell both stories about grandmother and bowel movements, but we won't go there. Many a textbook, who figures? Many a textbook will be written about the work that we're doing at the HistoryMakers. Just think of the potential to change the dialogue of African American achievement and involvement in this country. That's why we call ourselves America's Missing Stories, and we have HistoryMakers here tonight. I'm not going to call your names, but I do want to send out a special thank you to Madeline Rabb, who has supported our project since the beginning, who sat with me at California Pizza Kitchen when it was an idea and a lot of people thought I was crazy. And she has supported us ever since, and I want to thank her because she's been one of our tireless, quiet, but ever-present supporters. I want to thank everyone for coming out. You have a great program in store for you tonight. Now, we wanted to do something special this evening, and before we bring out our host, Robin Robinson, I would like to introduce a special guest for the evening. I guess we had his name sort of blazing out there, so I guess it's not such a surprise. But he worked with Chuck closely for years, and he actually would say that he grew up at the elbow, at Chuck's elbow. And when we told him we were doing this tonight, he said that he had to be here. So he flew in from California, and he's here to share in tonight's celebration. It is my pleasure to introduce Chicago's very own, and I know that, that's Channel 9. But sorry, but I'd like to introduce Chicago's very own and co-star of ABC's hit series, Commander-in-Chief, the renowned stage screen actor, Mr. Harry J. Lennix. Thank you.
Legends are a Chicago commodity. We all know of Leroy Brown, Al Capone, Harold Washington, and Boss Daley, and Fluky Stokes, and Jordan, and Dick Buckus, and Ernie Banks. What makes a legend endure is when the legend has his or her myth travel outside of the environs of this city, this great city of ours. Chuck Smith, after almost single-handedly opening up the doors of opportunity to black actors and directors across the city, after pioneering his way to positions of real and tangible influence throughout Chicago, and most notably here at the Goodman Theatre, after doing all that, he found his way to Los Angeles just before the events of September 11th. I remember that day well, as do we all, but mostly I remember it because of Chuck. He was shaken to his core. His abiding belief in the promise of America, in our goodness, in the fact that the fragile world had faith as much as we in our security. This man who would fly in from Chicago to anywhere in the world to help his friends and aid in the cause and crusade of the theater, even if it meant just to help drive a truck through the Smoky Mountains. This solid and unshakable man was shaken to his core. We were, you see, doing a play under the auspices of Legacy with the Roby Theatre Company out in Los Angeles. It was a baseball play called The Last Season, about the last season of the Negro Leagues. Chuck was directing. Part of the legend I shall now relate are his opening words. I know that we are in Hollywood, he said, but this is a Chicago play. Those words packed a wallop, perhaps not so much for the other actors not from here, but for the preponderance of the cast who had spent some time here at least. True to Chuck Smith form, we were off book and running the entire play after the third day of rehearsal. Mr. Smith, you will come to learn tonight, has his standards, and you risk falling below them at your own peril. The night after opening, it must have been September 13th, 2001, we made the tragic mistake of thinking that we had the play knocked. We were sloppy that night. We were reckless and indulgent. We even made the flaw of being self-congratulatory. The play may have even run a minute or two longer than it had at opening. So convinced were we that we were brilliant, we afforded ourselves our moments in the spotlight. I was guilty of all of this and even made the mistake of leaving a towel on the stage in view of the audience. Chuck's plays revolve around his stage pictures. His tableaux are as much a part of the mise en scène as the dialogue, the costumes, the music, and action. His stages are spotless and impeccable, and an errant towel is the elephant in the room. In my own defense, I can say that I was not the only idiot that night. Almost all of us made some gaffe, with the notable exception of Dwayne Perry. He's almost always perfect, the colossal jerk. In any event, we were a glorious mess. We had probably even forgotten about what had happened a few days before. I don't think it possible that it left our consciousnesses completely, but actors use the theater like junkies use dope. We mostly escape in it. In any event, somewhere midstream of patting each other on our backs or thumping our own swollen chests, the stage manager had a word for us. Chuck wants to see the cast in the house when you're all through changing. We hurried out, filled with pride, knowing how happy he was going to tell us he was of us all. Instead, we received an absolutely legendary dressing down that must have been inspired from Chuck's days in the Marine Corps. "What in the hell was that?" he said. "Who left those damn towels on the stage?" My hand went sheepishly into the air, sheepishly as did Scoop Calhoun's. "And what was all that pausing and posturing bull? Y'all are messing up my stage picture." He was livid. We were perfectly content to walk away when some hapless fellow blamed a particular gaffe on another actor. And then Chuck unleashed. "Man, what in the hell are you talking about? You embarrassing me up on that stage. This is my play. You're supposed to know better than that, man. I taught you. Crying on stage during a scene. What was that?" The actor defended himself. "I had a real moment of emotion," he said. I felt the depth of the character's pain. At this point, having had enough of this sort of thing, Chuck said, "Did I tell you to cry? Don't cry unless I direct you to cry. Just say your lines and get the hell off the stage." There was, of course, more to it than that. But trying to capture it is like trying to harness lightning in a bottle. I could do it no justice. That night, perhaps for the very first time in my life and career with my dear brother, colleague, and mentor, I saw Chuck get drunk. He was almost inconsolable. I had to insist to him that he was right in criticizing all of us. I did leave the towel on stage. That was sloppy. And more than all of it, it was, in fact, a Chuck Smith play. That, you must know tonight, Mr. Smith, is a good thing to be part of. And I hold it as a particular point of pride that I have been in very many of your plays, and I am a better actor, director, and man because of it. Chuck, the consummate artist and professional, was profoundly affected by the human drama of 9/11. He is profoundly affected by all drama and comedy, great and small. He then, always with full respect to his players, puts the stuff of life, and hence the theater, eloquently into action. His productions are seamless, unself-conscious, and deal with the invisibility of the fourth wall. You are always eavesdropping in on a Chuck Smith play. You are always a welcome guest, but you will find no pretense therein. You will find people talking, struggling, loving, and living. That we are scarcely aware of his sleight of hand is a tribute to this great gift. He infuses his productions with a spirit that he has tapped into. It is always larger than the individual and as timeless as our history. No one does realism better than Chuck Smith, and no one deserves this honor that you have blessed him with tonight more than he.
I'm very happy to be affiliated with the HistoryMakers. This is the second interview that they've allowed me to do. Julieanna Richardson is one of those rare people that has a project that could garner a lot of interest, and she seeks no publicity whatsoever. TV stations actually have to try to find out what she's doing. So October, it's Earl Graves in Chicago, Julieanna. Sends out no press releases, just kind of we find out, you know, through word of mouth, because everyone is so well supported, because it's always such a great subject. And I'm always thinking, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I interview that person first? She did have to explain it to me, though, because they asked me to sit down for my oral history. And I said, well, isn't that for people that are about to kick the bucket? Okay, you know, you got to hurry up and get it before I'm gone. She said, no. We want to get everybody. So the rich and old tradition of oral history meets the ever-changing and always new technology of video archiving. I think it's a fabulous and brilliant idea. And we will have to get Julieanna's story on tape, don't you think? I doubt she's thought of that. For those of you who don't know, I'm Robin Robinson from Fox Chicago News. I'm on at 9 o'clock. You will have to rush very quickly after this to catch me on the news. We're here at the Goodman Theatre because here is where creativity is a fact of life, and it's a fact of Chuck's life as well. Millions of us pass through these doors to be entertained, inspired, engaged. Maybe not these doors, but if you count these and the ones that were down the road on Columbus Drive, millions of us have, and hopefully millions more in the future. Tonight, though, we're here to celebrate one of the Goodman Theatre's own, theatrical director, Chuck Smith. Many of you have seen and admired his work over the years, even if you had never seen the man himself, as I had not. Most of us do not know his history, which is why we are here tonight. We're going to know not every little thing, because this is just the celebration. The actual oral history, which is quite lengthy, is just fascinating. I've read this transcript, and it really is. He has a fascinating life, and I'm so glad to be able to share a part of it with you all tonight. Little things like, do you know why you had jerk catfish on at the reception this evening? Because his favorite food is catfish. His favorite color is brown. His most preferred vacation destination is Canada. His favorite phrase is cool. Born on March 7th, 1938 to Amanda Booker and Charles Peterson Smith on Chicago's South Side, Charles Norman Smith, in fact, was cool from the start.
I met these guys, and they were in this group at Michael Reese Hospital called Dramatic Art Guild. And the Dramatic Art Guild was doing plays for the patients down there. They were doing a play, and one of the actors had dropped out, and they asked if I would come and, you know, check it out. And I told them they must be crazy, asking me, an ex-Marine, to go down there and be in some play. You know, I said, I don't do that kind of stuff. They said, you know, you're a single guy, Chuck. You know, be a lot of nice-looking ladies down there. You know, you ought to just come down there and check it out. You know, I said, okay, but that was the hook. As soon as I walked in the room, it was all over. I felt something. It took me a long time, like about 20 years, to figure out what it was, what that thing was that really got me. And it wasn't because there was ladies around. When I walked in the room, everybody was busy. Wasn't nobody sitting around talking, lollygagging, no BSing. Everybody was busy doing tasks. Somebody was over here in this corner, somebody was doing this, they were running lines, somebody was over there hanging lights, they were in tech. And years later, I figured out that was about the closest thing that I had come to the Marine Corps. I went and saw a production at Victory Gardens. They did a production of Ceremonies and Dark Old Men. This is like in 1977. In their mission statement, it states that every season they're going to do a play by, you know, that comes from the minority community, you know, which to me means the black community, right? Right away, I went to Dennis Zacek. He didn't know me at the time, but I had directed these two plays, My Sue Charlie and Eden. I got an appointment with him, took both, you know, the reviews, what little notices I had from both productions. Finally, he got back to me and asked if would I be willing to direct Eden? And of course I said yes, and that's what really started my professional directing career. My first directing assignment at X-Bag was the Daubers. Ted Ward had a friend who lived in the same building that I lived in. Ted had an extensive theater background. I mean, this brother's had done it all. Been produced on Broadway. He says, yeah, you always got to stay close to the black theater community. He said, but never be afraid to venture outside of it. He said, never be afraid to venture out. And that's what I needed to hear. I block a play right away. And as soon as I can go from beginning to end, I do it. It gives an actor and myself, the director, a really better sense of the arc of the play. Once the play is blocked, you zero in on specific scenes. Just target them. What's going on with the scene? It's just the way I was taught. And it works for me. And I haven't changed, not one bit, since my days at Loop College in the late 60s, early 70s. This is how I work.
Please welcome to the stage the resident artistic director of the Goodman Theatre, our man of the evening, Mr. Chuck Smith.
Thank you, Rainey.
Oh, no. Don't start standing up clapping a long time like one of his hit plays. We have to move on here. You got a few friends in the audience, but the news comes on at 9. So, this is your night. And I understand that you were interviewed by the HistoryMakers on July 19th this past summer.
Right.
I've never done an oral history. I have read the oral history, and it is detailed and lengthy. How was it to be the interviewee?
Well, it was fun because the guy who interviewed me, his name is Larry Crow, and Larry was from the old Black Theater days, down on in X-Bag in the early 70s, and ETA. Larry, and he was at one time he was the executive director of the Black Arts Alliance, Black Theater Alliance.
So you've been interviewed by somebody you knew.
So we knew each other, so it was like a friendly thing. Plus, I had volunteered for the HistoryMakers for about a year, and I had actually done some interviews and did the program that Les was talking about at the Cultural Center on the history of Black theater in Chicago. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It wasn't like a nervous thing, and this is the first time I saw a snippet of it, and I realized, oh wow, that's pretty.
You
nice.
did good.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, you really are one of Chicago's treasures. You were raised on the South Side here in what is now known as Bronzeville.
Yeah.
In fact, your parents were some of the original residents of the Ida B. Wells housing projects. Can you tell us about your neighborhood and your childhood?
Yeah, I was. My parents were original residents of Ida B. Wells at 3743 South Park, which is now King Drive, on the 3rd floor, and it was a great place to live. I went by there like about 2 years ago because we did a program in Madden Park, a youth program, and I cried.
Things have certainly changed.
It's all boarded up and everything, but in those days, they had the first argument I ever saw my mother get in with someone else was like, whose turn it was to plant the garden, and. Not pull the weeds,
no, plant the garden.
Plant the garden, and
so it felt like a real community.
Yeah, it was a beautiful community.
You could go out and play.
Yeah, there were 2 swimming pools, and it was just a great place at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, it was created with the vision of being a great place,
right.
But things have changed. In your interview, you drew parallels from your own experience growing up in Chicago to one particular play, which is perhaps one of your best-known directorial works, Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun. So what about that play resonates with Chuck Smith?
Yeah, in that play, that's the first play that I saw that I actually saw myself in it. And that was the young kid talking to his mom at the breakfast table. And that was, I said, wow, she's written something about me here, you know. And
it was in Chicago?
It was in Chicago. The play, Raisin and the Sun, is a Chicago play. It takes place on Chicago's South Side. And right away, I fell in love with the play, and I've been in love with it ever since.
One of the many things I learned today. Raisin and Sun's been all over the world, so I didn't know it was Chicago.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at one of your favorite scenes.
Sit down, Travis, and have your breakfast.
Mama, this is Friday. Check coming tomorrow, huh?
Get your mind off money and eat your breakfast.
This is the morning we're supposed to bring the 50 cents to school.
Oh, I ain't got no 50 cents this morning.
Teacher said we had to.
I don't care what the teacher say, I ain't got it. Eat your breakfast, Travis.
I am eating.
Hush up and eat.
You think Grandma will have it?
No. And I want you to stop asking your grandma for money, you hear me?
Golly! I don't ask her. She just give me it sometimes.
Travis, younger. I don't have time. I got too much on me this morning to be going through this with you.
Maybe Daddy.
Travis.
Can I maybe go carry some groceries in front of the supermarket for a little while after school then?
Hush, I said. Well, if you're through with your breakfast, you can go on over there and fix up your bed.
I'm gone.
Come here. If you don't take this comb and fix this head, you better. Just gonna walk out of here with your head looking like some chickens and slept in it. Now, I just don't know where you get your slubbering ways from. Now, get your jacket. Looks like it's gonna be chilly this morning.
I'm gone.
Get your car fare and your milk money. And not a penny for them caps, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Ooh, my mama make me so mad I don't know what to do. I wouldn't give that woman a kiss this morning for nothing in the world. Nope. Not for nothing in the world. Now, whose little angry man are you?
Ah, golly, Mama.
Oh, golly, Mama. Come on, get on out of here.
Now we all want to see the rest of the play, though.
Yeah,
we know how
yeah,
it goes.
well-
But why is that your favorite scene?
Well, it's me and my mom, me and my grandma. They, you know, eat your breakfast, eat your dinner, eat your beans, eat your, you know.
Stop asking me the hard questions.
Yeah. You know.
And do you have a favorite character in that play?
Well,
and are there
that's
any
him.
characters you
Yeah, the kid.
little boy?
Yeah, the kid's me. It's my favorite character. Yeah. So.
Anybody in the play that you, or any character that you didn't care for particularly?
No, no. Everybody's right on. Even the guy who comes, Leonard, the white guy in the play. In those days, in my community, you didn't see white people, you know, and only white people you saw were like the insurance man, you know, and or in those days, they came and collected, you know, and you had to pay cash. There wasn't no checks, writing no checks. There wasn't no mailing it in. It was always, you know, they come and they collect.
But if you didn't have anything else, you had insurance.
They had insurance, and also the rent guys. Now, I didn't deal with the rent guys because they had some, you know, there was some kind of system of how you paid the rent.
For Ida B. Wells.
Ida B. Wells. But in A Raisin and the Sun, a key thing about that, I talked to some of her, some people who knew her in high school.
Lorraine Hansberry?
Yeah, and they were, you know, they told stories about her. And one of the stories is there was a lady who knew her because she lived in one of her father's apartments. You know, they call them kitchenettes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Just they call in Manhattan now. You can buy one for $500,000, right?
Anyway, she would go with her father to collect the rent, and it's not like you knock on the door and then give me the money. It's knock on the door. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, come on in, have some food. Da, 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 da. And sometimes Lorraine would go with her dad. So that's how she knew about these families. And sometimes she would stay in the car and talk to the chauffeur. They had a chauffeur. Walter Lee Younger in the play is a chauffeur. And that's where all that came from.
So for those of us who are not really into all the theater history, that would be Lorraine Hansberry was not a black woman.
No, she was a black woman.
Okay, but she had a chauffeur.
Her father was well off.
I'm liking this. I'm going to go see that play again.
Oh, no. She is from the black. She's very black. Graduated from Inglewood High School.
So, but the story she told of Raisin and Son was from her experience going with her father collecting rent.
Yeah.
Well, and you also parallel this. You say when you moved to Hyde Park, which was from Ida B. Wells into Hyde Park, and at that time Hyde Park was predominantly white.
It was predominantly white. I was one of the fortunate. Well, we had to move. My grandparents were living in Bronzeville, and we had to move from Bronzeville because they were building Lake Meadows and Prairie Shores, and so my grandparents they bought a 3-flat in Hyde Park on 53rd and Maryland, 5312 Maryland, and I went to Kosminski over there. I was one of the first blacks to graduate from Kosminski, and I was the only black male in the class. There was three sisters, so that was nice, you know. And
good odds.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then there was this family. There was this family whose dad worked at, they call it the school, but it was the University of Chicago. And I used to be over their house, you know, just about every day in the summertime playing Monopoly. And they reminded me of this, you know, when I went to New York once, and some friends of mine said, "Have you seen Proof?" And this is a Pulitzer Prize winning play. And I said, "Well, you know, I haven't seen Proof." So you really ought to see Proof. Really ought to see Proof. And when I went to see it, they literally dragged me to see the play. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and I says, "Wow, you know, it's all about Hyde Park." And I came back, and I came back ranting and raving about Proof. I said, "You know what? Proof hasn't been done in Chicago, except for some tour that came through here, and it wasn't well received. But I said, you know, somebody's got to do that play because it's all about Chicago."
And it was based in Hyde Park.
Based in Hyde Park. I said, I know those people. The only difference was those people, the people I know, were black. But you know, it's the same thing. I said, in years not long after that. Well, we should look at the scene first, and I'll finish the story.
This is one of the scene you selected for us from Proof.
Right.
Hey.
I'm going to school.
When?
I start at Northwestern at the end of the month.
Northwestern?
They've been great about my credits. They're taking me as a sophomore.
Northwestern?
Yes.
Well, what's wrong with Chicago?
You still work there. I'm sorry, Dad. It's just too weird taking classes in your department.
It's a long drive.
Well, not that long, a half an hour.
Still, twice a day.
Dad, I'd live there.
You'd actually want to live in Evanston?
Yes. I'll still be close. I can come home whenever you want. But you've been well, really well, for almost 7 months now. You don't need me here every minute of the day.
So it's a done deal. You're in?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Who pays for it?
They're giving me a free ride, Dad. They've been great.
Yeah, tuition, sure, but what about food, books, clothes, gas, meals out? You do plan on having a social life?
I don't know.
Well, you gotta pay your own way on dates, the early dates especially, at least the first 3. Otherwise, they expect something.
The money will be fine. Claire's gonna help out.
Well, when did you talk to Claire?
I don't know, a couple weeks ago?
You talked to her before you talked to me?
Look, Dad, it took a while to set this up. Claire's been great. She offered to pay for all the expenses.
This is a big step. A different city.
It's not even a long-distance phone call.
This is a huge place. They're serious up there. I mean, serious. Yeah, football's a disaster, but the math guys don't get around. You haven't even been to school. Are you sure you're ready? You could get buried up there.
I'll be fine.
You're way behind.
I know.
A year, at least.
I know, thank you. Look, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if I can handle the work. I don't know if I can handle any of it.
For Christ's sake, Catherine, you should have talked to me.
Dad, listen. If for any reason it ever turned out you needed me back here
I
full-time
won't. That's not what I'm talking about.
Look, I can take a semester off.
No,
I can...
stop it. It's just the end of the month.
Come on.
Why didn't you tell me before?
Dad, it took a while to set this up, and until very recently, you weren't able to...
You just said I was doing fine.
I know, yes. I hoped, but I didn't know. No one knew for sure. I told myself to wait until I was sure you were feeling okay again.
So,
consistently okay.
I'm supposed to take this conversation as a vote of confidence? I'm honored.
Take it however you want. I believed you'd get better.
Well, thank you very much.
There's no need to thank me. I had to. I lived with you.
All right, Catherine, that's enough. Let's stay on the subject.
No, this is the subject. There were stacks of library books upstairs, stacked to the ceiling. Do you remember that? You were trying to decode messages.
The fucking books are gone! I took them back myself. Why'd you want to bring that garbage up anyway?
Okay.
When I saw that play on Broadway, there was a woman sitting like about there, and the play, as you know, the play is full of Chicago jokes. You know, it's all, and you got to be from Chicago to get all this stuff. And I'm laughing my behind off, and this Broadway house is not getting it. And I'm just, and when the line about you actually want to live in Evanston, I went up, I broke up, you know. And this woman turns and looks at me like, young man, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna have the house manager remove you from this theater.
She thought you were having a private joke.
I know, but she thought I was crazy. But the point is, I knew that play had to be done in Chicago by a Chicago director with a Chicago cast, and I came back to Chicago ranting and raving about proof, and it had to be done. And I tell this story for a reason. And I said, and I was telling her, we were up every Friday. We hook up here and have a few beers and, you know, socialize a little bit.
Theater family.
Yeah. And I was saying, yeah, so somebody's got to do it. I said, because I know that family. That family, the only difference is that family is black. And I know the family is a black family. About 3 weeks later, Bob Falls came and said, Chuck, come here, I want to talk to you. And he says, he was setting up the next season. And I had given him my list. Proof was not on it, of plays that I wanted to do. And he says, I want you to do Proof. I said, yeah! And then he says, I want you to do it with a black cast. And what my idea? It was Bob Falls' idea, you know.
What'd you think of the idea?
I love the idea, of course. But I tell that story to explain to you the environment that I work in, you know. That's the kind of environment that I work in, you know. I'm not the only one that comes up with great ideas about black theater, you know.
But we've heard that you'd like to share the credit.
Yeah.
However, having seen that little scene from Proof, and since I've never seen Proof, I want to know when you're going to stage it again.
Probably
so
not.
that those of us here in Chicago can get the rest of it. We'll just do it right here. Sounds fabulous. Now, for you, Proof had particular significance, not just professionally, but you also made some transitions at this time, or in terms of, had in your life that reminded you of some things in Proof.
Well, with me, it was living in Hyde Park overall. That whole experience. I spent my 8th grade, 7th, 8th, and the first year of high school at Hyde Park. First 7th, 8th at Kosminski. One of my classmates is here. And then the first year in high school at Hyde Park. And Hyde Park, I had to leave Hyde Park High because I was getting into fights with the black kids because my friends were the white kids from Kosminski.
From middle school.
Yeah, and the black kids couldn't deal with that.
They hadn't experienced anybody with
they
white
thought
friends
I
that
was
wasn't
trying to
white.
be something else other than what I was.
But conversely, when you were at
Kosminski,
you didn't have any problems with the white
I had no problems at all with the white. But you know, I was one of the fortunate ones that came from the black community, went out to the white community. I had no problem. Some of my other friends who left had horror stories about the neighborhoods that they went into, but I was very fortunate.
So you ended up actually, because of the problems you were having with the fellow African-American students at Hyde Park High School.
I left. I transferred.
And where did you go?
Went to Parker High, which is located right behind Kennedy King. Went to Parker High. In those days, it was Parker High, Wilson Junior College, Chicago Teachers College, and Parker Grade School over in that days. It was a nice, really great campus. And what I did was I had two friends from the black community, and I just merged in with the black community. And it was, I mean, it was separate. It was black, it was white. That was the way it was in those days.
It's difficult,
you know?
though, I'd imagine, having friends in both.
No, I really just dropped the friends in Hyde Park. I haven't seen them since, which is unfortunate, but that's
That's
the
how
way,
it goes,
yeah,
the times.
yeah.
Now, while you were at Parker's, when you took an interest in something that some of us may find a little odd for a person who's obviously creative, you decided to go into the Marines.
Well, in those days, that's what the guys did in the 50s. Either you went to if you wanted to be the careers that were open to you, sort of like, you know, you want to be a school teacher, then you go to teachers college. You know, I wasn't interested in being a teacher then, but all my friends were going to join the Marines, so I joined the Marines, and we were fighting all the time anyway, so I might as well join the Marines. You know, if you go fight, you know.
You didn't have, so this is in 1957. You joined the Marines and ended up in the Korean War.
No, I didn't. I was one of the lucky ones. I was sandwiched in between the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and there was nobody shooting at me. I was having
the end of one and before the other one had started.
Right. I was living large. I was really good. I spent a lot of time in Japan. In fact, I spent 2 tours in Japan. The first time I met this young lady over there, and I fell in love. And I was shipped back home, and I worked until I was able to get back, re-enlisted, to get back over there. But when I got back, it was a tragic situation. The girl had gotten hooked on drugs, and eventually, about 3 or 4 months after I got over there, she died of an overdose.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. And then after that, I really just immersed myself into, I bought a car, and I would go out, and I learned the language. I took a college course at one of the schools that offered down on nearby base, Camp Zama, and took a course in Japanese to learn the language, and I just went out and talked to Japanese. You know, it was nice. You know,
just went out and discovered a whole entire group of people.
Right.
Now, when you get back from Japan, it's September of 1963.
Yeah.
It's just a few days before Dr. King leads the March on Washington.
Yeah, I saw that speech on television in transit barracks, waiting to be discharged, and you know, I didn't even know what the deal was. I didn't know what was going on. I had been away for like about 2.5 years and hadn't dealt with any of this stuff, and so it was all fascinating to me. But I could never participate. After I got out, they said, well, you know, you should come and join the march, join this, and they said, well, you know, I know I couldn't do it. I couldn't be nonviolent. If somebody messed with me, I was going to mess with them back, you know. So I said it'd be best if I don't. You know, I better stay back. You know, watch y'all do this. You know,
the Marine would be in on the march.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
There's no way. Everyone knows the Malcolm, the traditional Malcolm and the traditional Martin, and this scene we see them as men. You know, just straight men, not political guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Martin, you've been to the mountaintop. If you have a moment, I'd like to share mine with you. Could be my gift to you.
I could hardly refuse an offer like that. The balcony?
Well, I want you to see what I see.
From out there?
What's the matter, Reverend?
I've never been partial to heights.
You're afraid of high places, Martin?
I didn't say I was afraid. I just said I wasn't partial.
Well, don't that beat all? Now, the problems seem a lot smaller from up here, Martin. More manageable. May not be the country, Reverend, but there are some things you can love more than the land.
Like the people who live on it.
Oh, yes, Martin. People. Would you do it all again? If you had the choice, would you do it all again?
Again? I didn't want to do it the first time. I wanted to lead a church, not a movement. But then a woman took a bus ride. It's amazing what you'll do once your feet get tired.
You know what I wanted to be? A lawyer.
For the prosecution or defense?
No, it doesn't matter. Either way, I would have been held in contempt.
Doesn't matter what they call you, just matters what you answer to.
You know, it's ironic. You tried to stop white folks from hating us. I tried to stop us from hating ourselves. We'll probably be killed by those we tried so hard to teach.
Why did you really want to see me, Malcolm?
I don't know. Suppose I just wanted to see if you'd come.
Another test.
No. Another chance. Another chance. Did you really come here to offer protection?
Maybe I should have said comfort. The type of comfort one man can give to another.
Do you think we'll be remembered as men and only men?
No. And we can't afford to let them know that's all we are. At least not for a while.
Do you ever wonder what kind of men we would have been? Had we been born at a different time, you know, when race didn't matter and injustice was just another part of a history lesson?
I imagine we would have been quite dull.
And we would have grown very old.
The dull have a way of outliving the rest of us. Perhaps that's their greatest punishment.
Punishment. My father was murdered because he spoke out. My mother was institutionalized because some pain deep inside her drowned out the language of the world. And I don't have anything to leave my family, no money, not even a home. And yet I still wonder if there's more I could have done, more of myself I should have given. We may both give our lives for this thing we call freedom. You know that, don't you? What's so funny?
I was just wondering what Coretta might say if she knew we spent the night arm wrestling.
You know, I imagine if Betty knew, she would go into early labor.
When she do.
You know, babies, Reverend, they come when they want to, whether you're ready or not. Hey, can you keep a secret?
Who, me?
I'm hoping for a boy this time. And a little child shall lead them.
And the lion shall dwell with the lamb.
That play is written in the play. It takes place on St. Valentine's Day, 1965, and that's 1 week before Malcolm was murdered. And you know, every time I see that scene, it kind of just
gives you
yeah,
goosebumps, doesn't it? It's very so. Now you know your connection to the theater. We all can't imagine you with a life without the theater, but you already been all the way grown and back from the Marines and still have not touched upon the theater yet. How did you, what introduced you to the world of theater? You're a grown man, you...
Yeah, well, like I said in the snap, that I met these two guys, Dick Umbra and Bill Bryant. They were, one was a bus driver, the other was a steel worker, and I was working for the post office at the time.
Oh, creative job.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like about 6 months out of the Marine Corps, and I had really decided that civilian life wasn't for me, and I was getting ready to go back into the Marine Corps. And these guys asked me to come down, and they needed an actor for one of the roles they were doing at a play that they were doing at Michael Reese Hospital. And you know, like I said, I was very reluctant.
They talked you into it, though.
They talked me into it, you know, and it changed my life. You know,
what was the play?
a play, the Mac Adam and Eve, and I played a wayward minister, and who had his eye for the ladies, which is that was easy for me to play. So, and the thing about it was after when the play was over, I was saying, they're laughing. This is really bad. I can't. He says, no, it's okay. They're not laughing at you, Chuck. They're laughing at the character, man.
You thought they were laughing at your,
I thought they were laughing at
lack
me.
of acting
No,
ability.
he said that. And I said, no, I'm not so sure about that. And they, at curtain call, I came out and people were, yeah. And that was it. You know, it was all over.
Had to get that rush back again.
That was it. Yeah.
So you continue with the Dramatic Art Guild for several years, doing lots of acting, lots of applause, but with no formal training.
No training. I mean, eventually I realized that I didn't. There was more to all this than what we'll be doing. So I went back to school under the GI Bill. Went to Loop College and studied theater at Loop College, and worked under beautiful gentleman by the name of Sidney Daniels, who's still there. It's not Loop College anymore. It's now Harold Washington. And unfortunately, the old building where we were in had this beautiful black box theater, and Sidney was a fabulous designer. And you know, he worked with us and made us look real good in that space. And then when they moved to Harold Washington, they didn't even bother to build a theater in that space. I felt that totally, you know, what the heck is going on? So.
Well, we see your next fundraising project coming up.
Yeah.
But while you're doing that, you're working in theater on the side.
Yeah.
And then you're working as a computer program with the Cook County Department of Public Aid.
Yeah.
So to support basically your theater habit, no doubt.
Well, and then my daughter. I had a daughter, you know, yeah.
And then you move on and branch out a little bit with Experimental Black Actors Guild.
X-Bag, yeah. Some friends of mine at the Michael Reese group, Dick Umber in particular, went and joined a group called X-Bag, and he was directing this show, and he wanted us to come and see it. So I went over there, and that was, you know, that was my first experience with real. Dramatic Art Guild was an integrated group, and X-Bag was, you know, black theater, you know, and all they did was plays written by black people, and that was kind of fascinating. And they were looking for more people to come, and so I sort of slid on over there and eventually became the resident stage manager of X-Bag, you know.
What was your first play? You remember the first play with X-Bag?
It was the Day of Absence. I played the announcer, which is written for it's a white role, but I played it in whiteface, and it worked.
Wow.
You know, yeah.
And then another name we know came out of X-Bag, Clarence Taylor came out.
Clarence Taylor was sort of like, he ran the place. He was the artistic director, the managing director. He was pretty much everything. And he would sit myself and everybody else around and told us the importance of doing black theater, doing it right, starting on time, the whole 9 yards. And I was still, I was much more a student theater at the time because I had, you know, been studying at Loop College. So no,
just getting your formal training and then putting it into place. Now, but you also started making the transition from actor to director.
Yeah,
while you
that
were
was
at
with
X-Bag.
Ted Ward's the Daubers. That was my first directing assignment on my own. And Ted Ward, he had a lady friend that lived in the building that I was living in South Commons, and we would talk endless for all night, you know, and about theater and his theater experiences. And one of the things he told me was, you know, I know you like X-Bag, I know you like black theater and all that stuff, but you know, you gotta don't get stuck in black theater. Just think about theater, not black theater. And so that was good for me to hear, because Clarence Taylor was complete opposite. He says, no, everything should be black. And you know, that was, I mean, I was happy there, but when Ted shared that information with me, and I realized that he had been, when you look at the scope of his work, the man had been produced on Broadway, you know.
But he still didn't go away from
no, he
black
didn't go away
theater
from black
completely.
theater, you know.
So at this time, you're talking about X-Bag, and there were quite a few other black theater companies being formed at the time.
The main company in those days was a black company called Kaumba, where Vale Gray Ward was the artistic director. But then there was other companies on the west side, the Lamont Zeno Theater. There was the New Concept Theater, Commotion, Casima. There was a lot of.
It would almost seem that it was perhaps even more vibrant a time than now for black theater.
Well,
in
it was
Chicago.
the black theater's always been vibrant. That's what you got to know. It's never been like, you know, it's now is you get more exposure. People,
Right.
you know about. We got 6 African American theater companies here in the city of Chicago that produce full seasons. You know, they're not just a play here, a shot here, but they do theater.
Do you feel like now, looking back, that you were there for the beginning of a
No,
of a
no, I was a
movement?
part of. I mean,
Okay.
I was there at that time, and I'm still here. But it's never changed. It's always been a lively thing.
But you've been a big part of it. You formed the Black Theater Alliance, or helped. I know you're going to say it wasn't you alone, but you helped form the Black Theater Alliance.
Well, I was the Black Theater Alliance. X-Bag was a part of the Black Theater Alliance, and Clarence Taylor made me go to the meetings. You know, so that's, you know, and the Black Theater Alliance was actually. And all the theaters and all the black theaters in the city of Chicago, we met like once a month and shared information and helped each other out with stuff. And then about 5 years later, after the Black Theater Alliance, the League of Chicago Theater started. You know, so the Black Theater Alliance was a prototype for the now powerful League of Chicago.
Which
Theater.
includes, of course, not just black theater,
Yeah,
but
all over the city, and it's the organization that's really pushed Chicago theater where it is now.
And I hate to always ask this because we hate to be compared to that other Apple place, but compare black theater in Chicago to New York.
Well, New York doesn't have 6 black companies producing full seasons. They just don't have them. You know, they got Woody King's New Federal Theater. He produces on a regular basis, and a few others, but they don't. You know, not in the scope here. Black theater is right now. Chicago is the place for black theater.
Okay.
Yeah, not only because of the 6 black companies that works. You got black plays done at the Goodman, and you got black plays done at Victor Gardens. You got black plays done at Northlight. You got black plays done at Steppenwolf. You got black plays being done all over the city of Chicago, not just in the black community.
Not just in black theater.
Yeah, not in just black theater.
Okay, now, at some point you decided you're going to be able to do this full-time, make a living, make a name, because from the time you're working with X-Bag, you're doing theater on the side, working full-time at the Department of Public Aid, but in '76 you decided to go back and finish your degree.
Yeah,
What happened?
actually, I finished the degree. I went to Governor State University. They had a nice program out there that they would take my life experience and apply it to, you know, my degree. So I went out there for 2 years, and then in 1977 got a degree in general studies degree.
And did you have to leave the theater for a minute, like just kind
Sort
of
of,
step
I
back
did.
so you
I
get that
actually did.
degree?
I actually did, because I was with X-Bag, and I had to not do X-Bag, but I did theater there at the school, so that was cool. And not long after that, that was in '77, '78. I hooked up with Victory Gardens, and that got me on track with the professional theater community in Chicago. That was because I directed a show for like about 7 consecutive seasons at Victory Gardens, you know. And during that time, then my daughter was growing up, and she decided she didn't want to go to college. You know, I was ready to send her to college, but she said she really didn't want to go to college. She wanted to be a beautician. So she went over here on Howard to a Pivot Point. And you know, I knew she was serious because, you know, she likes to sleep late, and
Set her own hours.
yeah, and she got up early in the morning to take a train, you know, the Red Line all the way to Howard, and she was doing this. I said, yeah, she's serious about this.
So the fact that she decided not to go to college kind of freed you up to be
Kind of
able to do
freed me
something
up,
that
and
wasn't going to
then
make money.
not long after that, she was doing hair in the basement of my house, and she said, and I noticed she wasn't asking me for money, you know, support money. And then I asked her, I said, look, I noticed you haven't been asking me for any money. She says, no, I'm fine as long as I can do hair in the basement. I said, whoa. You know, the house is just about paid for. You know, I don't have any outstanding debts. So this would be a good time for me to cut this 9 to 5 loose and do my thing. And so I said, look, if you're serious about you able to say, she says, as long as I can do hair in the basement, I say, baby, you can have the house. You know, you can do
do
hair
5, 10
anywhere.
heads at a time,
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to be in the basement. You do what you want. But I was 50 years old, and I went and told those people I'm out of here. They thought I was crazy.
Wait, and finish your degree, and then
I had
went
my
full-time in the
degree.
theater.
Yeah.
At Victory Gardens.
No, I was working. I mean, well, I was an independent, but the one thing I had been teaching part-time at Columbia College. I directed a show at Columbia College, and Sheldon Patinkin, who was here earlier tonight, he right after the show finished, he says, "Look, why don't you come and join us here as a teacher?" I says, "Yeah, I'm not a teacher. I've never taught." He says, "Well, hey, none of us are. This is, you know, in the early '80s." And so I started teaching part-time there. So I had some money coming in. You know, I wasn't completely out there on my own, but I had something coming in, and I had a job at Court Theater, lined up an acting job at Court Theater, the world premiere of Playboy of the West Indies, and I had another directing job for television at Channel 5, doing a piece based on the Emmett Till murder, and so called Crime of Innocence. And so I had those two things lined up. So
that show won you an Emmy Award.
I won an Emmy for that.
I noticed how you kind of glossed over your achievements. I have to come back. We skipped back in
Yeah,
1978.
but it's an Emmy. See, I'm not TV. You know, it was fine. You know, I'm sorry. No.
Just give it to me when we leave, and we'll call it even, okay? I'll hold it for you. You know. But prior to that, in '78 for Eden, which won 4 Jefferson Awards.
It won
So you had some credits.
Nominations.
Nominations.
It didn't win. But it was my first time out in the professional theater community, and 4 nominations. Didn't get another for ages, but
that
I mean,
kickstarts you.
Yeah,
that gives you a little incentive.
I thought I was cool. Yeah,
but it received a lot of critical acclaim, which
Shoot,
made because sometimes at some point you think, boy, I hope I'm in the right business. But when you get some critical acclaim like that, it does kind of re-energize you.
Without a doubt, no doubt about it. And it was a good show, and my association with Victory Gardens began there, and we're still tight. Dennis was here tonight early. Yeah.
Okay, so while you established a relationship that you're going to be a teacher, just like all the other teachers that are teachers at Columbia College, you're steady, you know, honing your craft and making a name for yourself in Chicago. You directed Ceremonies and Dark Old Men, 1981 and '82, and then asked to come on as a staff member.
Well, at the Goodman, because that was later. The Goodman is good. I came on at the Goodman in 1992.
1992.
Yeah. What had happened was there was this fellowship going around about a couple of years before, and to help artists that was at exactly my point in their career, who were ready to make a step, but not
go to the next level.
Yeah, didn't know how to do it. So, and if you wanted to learn certain skills, they would assign you to different theater companies, you know, all over throughout the country to help you learn how to do your thing. Okay. So I work with a group called Cornerstone. I learned how to take shows on tour, and I work with the History Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I learned how to program for a larger space. Now, when I was working with the History Theater, they also taught me a lot of really great things like board, you know, associating with the board of directors and all that kind of stuff. When I got through with that fellowship, I came to Chicago. As soon as I finished, I put an application with the Goodman. I sent a letter to the Goodman and said, hey, look, these are the things I think I can do for your theater. And I got called in for an interview, and like about 6 months later, I was on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but what would you say was your first experience with the Goodman, with major Chicago theater?
Well, I assistant directed A Christmas Carol with Steve Scott, and then I directed A Christmas Carol for 3 seasons. And during those 3 seasons, I turned it from a play with a little music to a play with a lot of music. And then in 1997, I realized we had done all of August Wilson's plays up to that point except one, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And I asked if I could do Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and so I was assigned Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and it was quite a success. It broke a box office record, and that really turned my head. That really good. Yeah.
Now, as you pointed out, the Goodmans was in it all but one of August Wilson's plays, and you obviously had a very long and productive relationship with him. What do you appreciate most about his work? We lost him, obviously.
Yeah, well, the main thing is that he actually did what he set out to do. He wanted to write a play about the African American community in the 20th century. He wanted to do a play of each generation of the 20th century. So all the way, he did it. You know,
you called it earlier. You called it his cycle. He
yeah, the cycle is a 10-play cycle, and the last one, Radio Golf, we're going to do here next year this time. We'll be doing it right now.
The only one that you hadn't done is the one that
Golf.
completed the cycle. But you have a special place in your heart for the one that
for
you said that we've all heard. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
All of August Wilson's plays in the cycle take place in Pittsburgh except one, and that's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That takes place right here in Chicago. So I felt that play was designed for me to do, you know.
And no one had done the play.
No one had done in Chicago. It's been done, yeah, but it hadn't been done here. Well, actually been done in Chicago. Pegasus Players did it. Harry Lennix played the role. And that was where I first saw Harry Lennix, you know. But anyway, so I asked Harry to come back and do it here at the Goodman. And August came to see it. He loved it. He said it's the best one he's ever seen. And he even put it in writing, you know. So I got it hanging on my bulletin board.
Very nice. Well, as one of your favorite scenes from one of your favorite plays, why don't you set up the scene
well,
for us?
this is a monologue that Toledo does in Ma Rainey, and it really explains the position of the black community in that day.
Now I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to show you how this goes, where you just a leftover from history. Everybody come from different places in Africa, right? Come from different tribes and things. Soon a while they began to make one big stew. You had the peas, the potatoes, the carrots and whatnot over here. And over there you had the meat, the nuts, the okra, corn. And then you mix it up and let it cook right together, get the flavors flowing together. And then you got one thing. You got a stew. Now, you take and eat the stew. You take and make your history with that stew. All right, now it's over. Your history's over and you done ate the stew. But you look around and you see some potatoes over here and some carrots over there. That history's still there. The stew is still there. What you got? You got some leftovers. That's what it is. You got some leftovers, and you can't do nothing with it. You already making you another history, cooking you another meal, and those leftovers are still there. What to do? See, we's the leftovers. The colored man is the leftovers. Now, what's the colored man gonna do with himself? That's what we're waiting to find out. But first, we got to know we the leftovers. Now, who knows that? You find me a nigga that knows that, and I'll turn any which way you want me to. I'll bend over for you. You ain't gonna find that. And that's what the problem is. The problem ain't with the white man. White man knows you a leftover, because he the one done the eating, and he know what he done ate. But we don't know that we been took and made history out of. Done filled the white man's belly. And now he's all full up and tired and wants you to get out the way and let him be by himself. Now, I know what I'm talking about. And if you want to find out, you just go and ask Mr. Irvin what he had for supper yesterday. And if he's an honest white man, which is asking a whole heap of a lot, he'll tell you that he done ate your black ass. And if you please, I'm full up with you, so go on and get off the plate and let me eat something else.
That kind of explains itself.
Politicians should get a grip, right?
Yeah.
That we should thank the Congo Square Theatre Company
Oh,
who
yeah.
provided us with
Yeah.
little scenes here now. That's a scene from one of your very, very successful productions.
Right.
You know, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom received critical acclaim, broke box office records, but it's not like you could say, well, that was it. That was the high point,
No.
because I understand you had quite a few, and didn't they have a nickname for you?
They'll call me the Hit Man for a while.
The Hit Man.
Yeah. Because after Ma Rainey, I did a play called Blues from Alabama Sky that was very well received by Pearl Cleage, and then there was a Raisin in the Sun, and that was over at the old space, and then we moved over here, in this space, and I did a production of Amen Corner that was quite well received. Amen Corner was a very special play for me because we did it during a stagehand strike. We had picket people. There was picket lines out in front when we came to work, and it was hard, for anybody to cross the picket line. But I had some very dedicated people who came in, who crossed the picket line, and we staged a wonderful play, and took it to Boston, and won some awards in Boston. Yeah.
You've been quoted as saying that the Goodman is a director's theater. What do you mean?
Well, it's a theater that the artistic product is sort of decided on by directors. Chicago has 3 Tony Award winning theater companies. Steppenwolf, which is an actors theater. Actors sort of make the decisions, the artistic decisions there. Victory Gardens won a Tony. They are playwrights theaters, the playwrights that sort of drive that company here. And here at the Goodman is a directors theater. There's directors on staff who fight for positions to do shows on the stage. I get the show on its feet as soon as I can and let people look at it. And we work together, And that's a whole lot for Marine Corps, Everybody works together. You got to work together. And so we work together and say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Well, yeah, I don't like that one. But as a director, you are in charge, and I love that. And so
another holdover from the Marine Corps. Okay.
But and you make the decisions on how the whole thing is going to go, and
would you say you're more collaborative than not? That you don't say, too bad, that's the way I want it. I don't care what you think.
No, you gotta listen to the ideas. I mean, we're all artists here, and so it's not a dictatorship. It's a collaborative, and you gotta let everybody's ideas come through.
Even in a director's theater.
Oh yeah.
Well, in Chicago's theater community, even though you didn't decide to join it full time until you're 50 years old, you are revered. Your name, is automatically, people start telling stories about, their favorite, Chuck Smith story, and how wonderful you are. And this may be, not a fair question, but in return, how do you feel about Chicago's theater community?
Well, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I have family in New York, and for years ever since they knew I was interested in theater, they've been trying to get me to come to New York. They haven't got well, they do now, but they never had a real clue as to why I would stay in Chicago to do theater.
If you could be in
If I can be in New York. And they just don't get it, that Chicago, first of all, I was born and raised here, and I live here. And I don't really want to live anywhere else. And you got this vibrant community that I've been a part of it since it really started. Down on Lincoln Avenue when it was, I was working with a group called Kingston Minds, and down the street where Victory Gardens is now is Body Politic. And this is back in, early 70s. And it was, it wasn't what it is now, but I've been a part of it all through this, the process. And it's a family thing, It's,
as we said, you were at the beginning of a movement.
Yeah. And I'm really, I work all the time, so why should I leave?
We are in 100% agreement with you. Well, we know you wouldn't leave, but is there anything that you would have done differently?
Nah, not actually. As I'm sitting here today and looking out with all my friends here, no way. No way. No way I would have made any different turns or twists along the way.
Okay, now, all the interviews in the HistoryMakers archive end with the same question. And yes, he does know what the question is, so we expect something really profound. Pressure's on. Let's conclude our discussion tonight with that question. What do you believe is your legacy?
I think probably, as I look back, I didn't know it at the time, but when I directed Eden at Victory Gardens, I was the first African American to direct the professional show in the off-loop community. And this is back in 1978. I didn't know that at the time. And I think if that had gone badly, then things might not be as healthy for the African American thespian as it is today. And it is healthy today. And so the fact that I had something to do with that makes me feel good, and that I did it right. And so that other African Americans could walk through the door that I helped to open. Now, that's pretty cool to me.
That's very, very cool legacy.
Yeah.
Very cool legacy. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to sit here and discuss you and your life tonight instead of what I know is probably waiting for me back at that newscast. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank the Congo Square Theatre Company, the Goodman Theatre, and each and every one of you. Thanks so much.
Very nice.
That's very nice. You're just an actor.
You did a great job. You did a great job. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We made 2 horrible admissions, Les and I. We'd like to thank Rock Schulfer, who is the executive director, and Bob Falls, who's the artistic director. And we would be horribly remiss to not thank Congo Square Theatre, who stepped forward. Derrick, I don't know where you are, but really they came and really made this evening come alive and made Chuck's plays come alive. And they're one of the most talented troupes that I have seen, and I'm so proud they are black. They remind me of Steppenwolf in its early days when I was a young person coming here. So we want to thank them. We want to thank you, and to everyone here, thanks to the Goodman, thanks to the HistoryMakers supporters, and thanks to everyone, and good night.